Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Truth That Heals podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and I'm here with special guest and fellow podcaster, Johnette Cruz. Johnette, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. First of all, we met where?
On TikTok. Out of all places. Although I feel like I meet so many good people on TikTok, so I'm not surprised.
Something I want to get into is I like to discover more about each guest. And of course, speaking about their truth that heals, but beyond just truth, there's also lies and there's also BS in the world that does exist. So the truth that heals is supposed to kind of counter the toxicity that's in the world. And I see that you have a podcast and it talks a lot about toxic things in relationships and in dealing with ordinary with life. And you also have a super companion. Can you tell us about your co-star?
Yes, my co-host, her name is Ashley. We've been best friends for the last 5 years. And I have been wanting to do a podcast for a really long time. I came from radio and I came from TV, so broadcasting world. I started behind the filter just again, to have those everyday conversations with people and to have like a level playing field in terms of conversation. And, it's like an open platform essentially. And then her and I always just have like these hilarious, like girl talk conversations. And it just very organically one day was like, man, we need to record some of the stuff some of the stuff has happened to us. And then like just light bulb went off and I was like, oh my gosh, well, I'm already doing a podcast. Why don't we just insert, one that's like more tailored to women and girls and girl talk and dating and relationships and all of that. And now it's done really well. And so now, we're adding it on as a regular part of Behind the Filter. So I love the fact that like, we have that part of Behind the Filter. And then we have the other part where, I do talk about really hard things about life and serious things and things that have, wrecked people's lives, but how they will overcome it. So I like the fact that we have a good balance between both.
Yes, you do have a good balance. And I want to dive into where did it all begin that you have the passion to go get a microphone or just go in front of the camera and speak your truth.
Yeah. I think that's kind of always come with me and with my story and the things that I've gone through. I've never been one to shy away from anything. I've always like, if I wanted to do something, I figured out, and I don't know where it comes from, honestly. It's just like, I want to do something and I figure out a game plan to do it. And I find a way to implement, to execute, to find some people, to find the contacts, to do all the things in order to get into that space. Having a podcast I wanted to do for a long time, although, life happens. And I felt like with a lot of things that happened to me recently within the last 3 or 4 years, I just wasn't in a mental space to be able to take something on like that and to be as raw and to be that vulnerable with people. I've always been pretty vulnerable and transparent. But to be in a space where like I can kind of turn it around and I can be okay talking about like my situations and things, there was still some work that I had to do. And I came to a moment where I was like, why am I waiting on this? Why am I just sitting on this? Like, you've had this desire for so long, just fucking go do it. And so I was like, screw it. I'm going to get it all together and I'm going to do it and I'm going to run with it. I've always kind of had the mindset that like, I'm 42 and like, tomorrow's not promised. And I really don't want to be, God willing, if I'm an 85-year-old starting a podcast, I want to do it now,
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of like seizing the moment and seizing the opportunity. Like I think once like, somebody, whether it's your God or whoever you believe in, somebody or something implanted something in you to accomplish or to do. And I feel like it's kind of a disservice if you just let it sit there. You got to explore it. You have to know if it's going to work. You have to know if it's going to fail. You have to know if you're going to need to pivot on some things. And so that's kind of what I've done with my life. And so that's kind of how I took this. I was just like, okay, let's run with it, see where it goes and how I can build from it.
When you first started and you launched your first podcast episode, what was going through your mind in preparation for that first episode? Did you know already the direction, the vision, the mission that you had for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I was very, very specific. I was coming from a place where I've gone through all of these awful, horrible things, and I wanted to let people know that they're not alone in their stories. They're not alone in their situations and the things that they have gone through in life. And so the premise, all of it was to be able to share those stories behind, like, you know, the nice pictures and videos of social media. Behind that, there's a story of somebody who had a lot of shit happen to them, but maybe hasn't necessarily been so forthcoming on it. And so that I knew like that was like my direction and my vision. And then as I started to interview people, I felt like my vision kind of widened. Like I went from only wanting to speak with certain people to then opening the door of interviewing lots of different types of people to then changing the type of content I wanted to cover. Now, like I'm also expanding to news where before I didn't really want to touch news again because I came from news to, you know, now dealing with some other stories that are more like hard news, but I didn't ever want to do hard news. So I think it's just, it's crazy how when you do have a definite vision of either how you want something to look, how it's going to flesh out, you don't exactly know how it's going to work or how it's going to end up panning out until you actually do it. Like I would have never thought, oh, let me bring in my best friend and let's do a podcast. And then let's have all of these like umbrellas underneath, you know, behind the filter. That wasn't even a thought at the beginning. And so it's just kind of crazy how you start with this one idea. And I was super laser focused on it. And then as I started doing it, like just different things started hitting me. And that was because I was just talking to different people. And I think those people opened the door for new conversations, for different perspectives, for the way you think on things, for the way people also believe differently. And then you kind of take that information in and it just, I mean, in my opinion, just kind of changes things. I've always said like, I'm always been like I'm not a black and white person. I'm a very, very gray person. It's never a yes or no. It's always like, but what if X, Y, Z, you know, and then what happens if A, B, C, you know, it's always been like that for me. So I guess that's kind of like how I've ended up taking this podcast, really.
So you said earlier that you've had unfortunately some shitty things happen to you, and you wanted to do the podcast also to have your voice out there so that people can know that they're not alone in going through whatever situation or circumstance it is that they're also going through. If you can, I don't want to get too personal, but what are some of the shitty things that you've been through?
I think there's a lot, and it's so funny. I think like with everything that has happened to me in my life, it's been now that I look, do I wish it upon anybody? Do I wish it didn't happen to me? No, but in retrospect, it has shaped me who I am today. You know, I didn't have a great childhood. My mom did as best as she could do. So, you know, I did and see a lot of, unfortunately, there was lots of different forms of abuse growing up. A lot of people don't know this. I've shared this only in smaller circles, but I've been sexually assaulted multiple times, starting at the age of 7. So that's something I've had to work through that I didn't really, you know, remember until I was about 18 or so. I had a very, very heavy drug addiction. I was basically on a coke binge for 2 years, starting at the age of 18. When I found, or when my memory started to come back with all of these things that had happened. Nobody really knows any of that, but I kind of just took it in and then try to deal with it as best as possible, you know. And then I got married, and then I have an autoimmune disorder. I've had 6 surgeries. I've had 3 organs removed. So that was a hard season I had to go through. I had to go through a divorce and start my life over after being with somebody for 18 years. So that's another hard season. You know, I had my own fitness studio. And I went through a lot of grief the year I opened it. I lost somebody. And because of that, I kind of lost my mind and I couldn't function. And it was the same year I opened, and I ended up having to close my studio. I basically started my life over, moved back to the other side of town, and basically started over from square one again. I felt like it was like the 3rd time I started my life over, is what I like to tell people. So it's like with everything that has happened in my life, there's always been, I've had to go through it, and I've had to have therapy for it, but then I've always learned from it. Like I've never taken any of my things and made it like a woe is me situation. It's always been like, okay, this is what's happened to me, but like, this is how it's helped me. This is why I look at things differently now. And I've always said, like, never say never, because until you're in a situation, you never know how you're going to act, how you're going to respond, what you're going to say until you put yourself there. So I always kind of, I take other people's truth kind of with a grain of salt. Like I don't right away judge. I just like to sit and listen because I have never walked in their shoes in that same situation, as I would not like people to judge me when they have judged me for how I've grown up and, the past circumstances that I've gone through. I've had people say, oh, well, I would have left that relationship way before. Well, you're not in my situation. You don't know, there's just lots of different things. And so I kind of taken all of that in to know that, it's all been a learning experience, whether it's been horrifying or not. And I've worked really, really hard on myself, on going to therapy and doing lots of healing in, what has happened to me and how to heal from all my past traumas and all of that to move forward. And I kind of now I wear those, I feel like I kind of wear those scars boldly now. Like it's okay. You can still live life and it's fine. And you can use it to an advantage and not a disadvantage.
When you were going through all of these challenges, because there were and not even just challenges, but traumatic experiences,
Yeah.
was there a voice that you were able to listen to, or was there someone that you were able to go to during this time?
When I was little and as growing up, no, definitely did not have a voice. I did have somebody when I was 19, 20 introduce me to church. And I felt like that was a huge help in terms of me starting to heal and starting to acknowledge some of the things that happened in my life. I think for so long, I didn't want to like feel anything. And so that's why I like turned to like drugs and alcohol for so long to do all of that stuff. But when I finally had somebody at that age that turned and looked at me and said, tell me your story. What's wrong? What happened? I had never had that in my life. Nobody really cared to know or to ask what was wrong with me, why I acted the way I did, why did I respond the way I did. And so that person really introduced me to my faith. And, that has changed over time in of itself. But I feel like that if that person wasn't there, who knows where I would be right now, because that's the person who in my life, I feel like started it all in terms of my healing journey. I actually had somebody, and I know a lot of people don't. And it's really hard when you have nobody, because I've also been on that side where I haven't had anybody and I've just had to just push through and be like, you got this, keep going, even though you didn't have a person. But thankfully, for that short period, I did have somebody that instilled some type of foundation for me, so that I can continue and push through and move on through all those things.
Why do you think acknowledging the bad things that happen instead of just kind of forgetting about them, why does acknowledging them bring healing, in your opinion or in your experience?
That was probably the biggest revelation for me, was acknowledging what has happened in my life. Because if you don't acknowledge anything, or the things or the trauma or the experiences that you have gone through, all you're doing is you're pushing all of that down, and it's going to stay inside, and then it's going to stay suppressed. And then at the same time, it's also going to start to manifest and come out in different ways. There was lots of trauma that I did not necessarily deal with right off the bat when I started to go through my emotions and go through my healing journey. And it would come out in other relationships. It would come out with me being a mom. It would come out in the job I had. It came out in my reactions to things, like all of it. It's like I feel like if you don't acknowledge some of that, it kind of becomes a poison in your body. It's like starts to seep out in the most negative way, and you have no idea it's doing it until like there's a situation or something slaps you in the face, basically, and you're like, oh shit, I got to take a step back. Like, what did I just do? And then you're like, and then all of a sudden your eyes can come open and you can really see like, wow, I really have to deal with this, and I think for me, really kind of coming to grips with everything, acknowledging it, it made like not only like my body, but my heart, my soul, my brain, it made my entire being aware of the situation and aware to say, this is what happened and this is how it happened, and it's okay, because now we're going to deal with it, that this is not who you are. Because I think sometimes with some of those past experiences or traumas, I feel like the enemy can come in, or just even your negative, like there's a negative thought process that stays in your brain. and it says that you are meant to have this thing happen to you because you're this type of person. But I feel like acknowledging that situation and making yourself aware of it says like, no, that's not who you are. That's an experience that happened to you, but it doesn't define who you are right now. That's something that happened to you. That's an experience, but that doesn't make up who you are and how you have to be a certain person, certain type of person. So I think with acknowledging and making yourself aware, it's like you're finally releasing all of that negativity that happened. I think also sometimes the guilt for us to hold on to something is huge, and it weighs us down. And I think it doesn't allow us to move forward until we freely, really let go of things in order to heal and in order to move on. Because if you're holding on to all this negative shit in your life and you're pushing it down and you're not letting anybody in and you're not even like wanting to talk about it, where's the room for you to grow? Where is that coming from? Where is it going to come? You can't have both in you. One's going to overside the other. You know what I mean? Like one's going to be more powerful than the other. And if you don't make yourself aware to those pieces of you, then how do you expect to grow into your life and to fully become like the full whole person that you're meant to be when you have all of these things you haven't acknowledged? It's a weight. It weighs you down.
And how did life change when you started opening up and acknowledging and also giving room for yourself to excel and heal?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to be with acknowledging the fact that all of these things, yes, all of these things happened to me and all of them were horrific and horrible. And did I have a lot to do with it? No. In some situations, things happened to me. In some of those other instances, I played a huge role and I played a huge part in it. So it's really kind of looking at yourself really with like a super close lens and being like, what did you do? Like how did you take part of this? And acknowledging that fact. Like sometimes it's not always your demise or the problems in your life is not always someone else's fault. It's also your fault too. And so I think you have to be humble enough and not let your pride hit you to know, okay, I fucked up. What am I going to do to change it? How am I going to change things in the future? What am I going to take accountability and action for so that I can move on? So it's really making yourself self-aware to move forward, and then also having that like thought process move into your head. So if you're moving into a next season of life and a similar situation comes up, like, because you've been in that healing mode and you are doing the work and you're talking your thought processes out, or you're journaling, or you're reading a book and it's triggering things from memory and you're able to move through some of those steps, instead of you right away going back to something that is you feel in your mind is safe, it's like a checkpoint. Like, oh wait, hold on, I feel like the situation is very similar to this. Like, take a beat, take a moment. How do I make this different, or how do I make this situation, this outcome different than what I would have normally made myself react to? And so it's taken me a very long time, I'm not gonna lie, to sit back and kind of not only take accountability, but kind of take inventory as well. Because I also have a thing with situations where like sometimes I hear things, but I hear them with a negative connotation in my brain, but that's not really what actually was said. And so I really do sometimes have to stop myself, and I have to be like, wait a minute, what did that person say? How was the tone? What did you think you say? Like, sometimes you just have to break it down before you spout off and react. I'm Puerto Rican, and like Latinos, Latinas, we can be hot tempered and we can jump off the get, So I really, really have worked so hard to just simmer down in those instances and be like, let me take a breather. Let me think about this. Let me process some of this stuff first before I react in a way that it's going to upset somebody, that I'm going to say something that I can't take back, because I've been in those situations before. And I've been on the opposite end where I've heard somebody say something to me. And once you say some words, man, you can forgive all day long. But once those words come out of somebody's mouth, it's really, really hard to like move forward and get back to where you were with that person. You can forgive them, but I don't think you'll look at them the same. That's my personal opinion on that. But it's really just like a whole lot of self checkpoints, I feel like.
Yeah, and you were talking about how this has taken you time. It's
Oh
not.
yeah.
It hasn't been a one day thing. It's taken time, a lot of self work. But what is something that you've learned throughout this process of healing and growth? What is something that you've learned that you wish you would have known about much sooner?
Um, I think that it's okay to feel. I think for a long time, I think because of the way I grew up and my atmosphere and my environment, I've always been an emotional person, but I don't think I ever would allow myself the space to feel and to grieve things, and not knowing that I am feeling a certain way because I am grieving either a situation, a person, a relationship, a loss of a job. I'm grieving me not being able to be a mom again because now I have to get all my organs taken out. Like all of those little things. Instead of like passing it off and just saying like, okay, well, this is my life, this is what it is, and like this is what God has placed in my life, blah blah blah. No, like give me the time and the space to open up about my feelings. Let me have a crappy fucking day of crying. Let me feel everything, because it's a process. You have to be able to let your feelings out. You have to be able to let yourself process your feelings so that you can heal. Because there's been times where like I didn't let myself do that and I would explode and it would be horrible. Absolutely horrible. There's a season where I had a ton of panic attacks and they were coming on like fury, like one after the other, and I couldn't work. I was it was the panic attacks were so bad to the point where like I even thought about killing myself, because I was just like, I can't do this. This is why people kill themselves, because I became that desperate because I just wanted the pain to stop. And I now looking back think the panic attacks were like a fight or flight response to some of the trauma that I had to face. And I was fighting my way, not wanting to face it. And my body was like, no, you have to face it. And it put me in that situation in order to do it. So I always tell people, like, you have to let yourself feel. If you don't let yourself feel, either your body's going to make you at a certain point, or something's going to happen in your life and you'll be like, damn, I should have dealt with that situation 5 years ago, because now look where I am.
Well, that's very deep.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. And you've gone forward to start your podcast, and I wanted to explore um, who are the people listening to your podcast? Like, what audience are you targeting?
Well, it's so funny because at the beginning, I didn't even know what target I wanted. I was just like, I just want people interested. If they just want to hear about random people and story their lives, like, let's go. I never even thought about it. And then as the episodes started to come out, I would start to see just different people from all walks of life, because I would sometimes interview people that are artists and that they were really trying to connect with their music and the community and that kind of stuff. I was dealing with I talked with somebody else who is a big foodie content creator. It's all these different types of people, and they all have different audiences. And so I had no idea who I was going to get. Obviously, we're starting after dark and we're talking more about girl things. We have started to heavily skew more in the female demographic. And I would love it to be a mix of both because, I am interviewing both men and women for that. So I really feel like as of right now, I don't even think I have a hand on who that audience should be. I think whoever it hears and whoever it resonates with is my audience. And it could be different for every single person in any type of season of life.
So I'll be truthful that I've listened mostly to your After Dark editions
Yeah.
because I did have Ashley on the live stream as well on TikTok. So I kind of want to get a feel of who both of you were. Uh,
Yeah.
but so that side that segment of the girl talk,
Yeah.
that's not how the whole podcast is.
So what we do is we have different segments within the podcast. So we have like our DMs of the week where we share like funny DMs that we've received. They've been both on a man and a woman's perspective. It's either we share our own, or we have people that have like DM'd us DMs, which we thought was funny. So we talk about that. We have a segment called The Audacity, where like the audacity of somebody who did XYZ to me. Again, some of those are from personal stories or people have shared them. And then we go into any viral topics of the week. That's something that we've come across TikTok or on Instagram or something that we've seen that's really big, and we have a chat. And then we go into a subtopic after that. So every week there is some sort of topic that we do talk about. So like this one that we did at Daniel's Vineyard that we just talked about, Daniel's Vineyard is doing this big Valentine's Day thing, and it's Valentine's weekend. So we're talking about Valentine's and what does it mean to either be in being in a season of singleness, or if you're like newly in a relationship like I am. So we had both the takes, but like some of those other subtopics have been, being an entrepreneur. Ashley is more of a fashion influencer. So we did one episode on kind of fashion trends that are happening. We also talked about moving into a space of being single now in a new relationship. I've kind of talked about how like my experience has gone with that. So there are some different subtopics that we try to focus on, and we'll try to expand on a little bit. So we hope that every time there's an episode that obviously, we have our typical things, but like we're not just going to share like the same information all the time. We always want to grow and change on what we're sharing and experiencing. Ashley and I we've been single for quite a while. And so a lot of times we're sharing our own personal stories of that kind of stuff. And one DM of the week I did share about I decided to get back on an app to date. And this guy, I didn't swipe on him, and he ends up DMing me. Well, come to find out, he had DM'd me 6 months before that. We did start a conversation. We tried to meet up for a drink, but he got very rude very quickly. And so to me, I was like, the audacity of this guy to like, I blocked you before. Why? I don't understand. So I responded to him and I said, I'm sorry. Do you not remember the conversation we just had 6 months ago? You said basically I was saving you money because you decided you didn't want to take me for a drink now. And he was like, oh yeah, well, thanks for making me save more money again. And I'm like, this is exactly why I didn't go on a date with you. So we're talking about stuff like that, and then like this past week's episode, I talked about the audacity of a date that I went on where like literally like the 5 or 6 things that make me who Johnette is, the guy didn't like. He didn't like the fact that basically I was a Latina and I like to listen to reggaeton, salsa, merengue. He hated that music. He didn't like to go out and do events. He doesn't like to drink. And then we had differences in the types of churches that we went to, which I mean, obviously it was fine, but it was like knock, another knock, another knock. And I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, I don't understand. Why did I just get ready for 2 hours, take time out of my day to go and meet and have a date with this person? And you don't like anything about me, but yet you still like me. So to me, that was like the audacity of this person. You just wasted my time. You could have told me that in a text.
Well, when you all were talking like online, did he at least like give you hints to not liking?
No, none of it. If I knew going to a date that this guy didn't like anything about being a Latina, then like, why would I even entertain that? That makes no sense. We talked about music here and there, but most importantly, I was mainly like trying to get to know him, like where he grew up, his family, like that kind of stuff. And he seemed like a nice person, and then like, I was just like, wow, this is bad.
Okay. For a first date, how many red flags do you allow? Like, is there like a threshold?
It's so funny. Ash and I did talk about this, I feel like on a couple episodes ago. And I feel like it ranges. It ranges. Like I went on a date and I had an immediate red flag. But the red flag came in or we were driving and he did something right off the bat. And I was like, oh, I'm done. So like that started early. I went on another date where the conversation was fine. And we got to dinner and the guy could not look me in the eyes. He couldn't have a conversation and look at me. He kept looking to the side. And then it literally felt like it was a red wall. It literally felt like I was talking to a wall. And I was just like, I might as well be having dinner by myself. So after like the third question in my brain, I was like, how do I get out of here? So I think it just kind of varies on the red flags for sure.
Is there like a red flag where it's like, this is a red flag, but I'll still allow it? Have you had those experiences?
Oh my gosh, I've allowed so much. So much. I think one red flag for me was I was seeing somebody who had a child and had a very, I would say, very interesting relationship with the baby mother, the baby's mom. And I overlooked it because I was like, no, he's a really nice guy. Like, he seems like he could be great. And I just completely overlooked it because I wanted to make something work that I knew was going to be a 100% a no-go for me. And then I finally saw the red flags very clearly a month in. So unfortunately, I should have learned my lesson on that one.
Okay, what are some green flags?
Green flags. Green flags is a man who texts you with the utmost respect and does not talk about anything intimate at the beginning. The amount of men that jump into that type of conversation at the beginning is absolutely ridiculous. And that's how I know my boyfriend now was a green flag to begin with. We met each other on social media, we exchanged numbers, we started texting. Nothing ever came up about any of that. And I loved it. And it was great. And we really got to know each other. And he was really interested in getting to know who I was as a person and where I grew up. And then we ended up finding out we had same similarities. Like we both grew up we both lived in San Diego for a really long time. And so then we had commonalities with that. And so then it grew from there before our first date had happened. And it happened all naturally, which was great. So that to me, like I was even like, right when I started talking to him, I was even telling Ashley, like, Ashley, you will not believe it. He has not mentioned one thing about like intimacy, kissing, nothing, looks, none of it at all. It's amazing, because that's like, it's so easy, I think, for guys to just like jump on board on that conversation train without even knowing a person.
While you started dating, was your podcast already out?
It's funny because he knew, like, he researched me and he knew where I came from and I had a podcast. And so he would text me like, oh gosh, am I going to be the topic of a conversation this week? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, just don't do anything bad. I mean, I'll say good things, It's kind of like that. So there are points where he just like, I don't even want to listen to it anymore. Cause obviously, I still talk about past experiences and stuff like that. But yeah, it was kind of funny. And then past people that either I've talked to or we are still friends on social media, they would DM me and be like, have you talked about me on the podcast? And I'm like, I don't know, you gotta listen to it. I'm not gonna talk.
So now I want to talk about Ashley, your co-host. How did you all meet?
We actually, so back in, gosh, I think it was like 2018, 2019. We were both kind of in the blogger influencing world. So that's when I had just started to branch out a little bit. Like I was doing lots of social media and I was connecting with a lot of women in the Indianapolis area who did blogging, who did lots of collabs with like basically all intents and purposes. Everybody was trying to be like some sort of fashion influencer. I quickly realized that was not me. I did a couple of them and I had a season where I had lots of collabs and then I quickly transitioned more into fitness because that was my thing, was fitness. And I ended up meeting her. Like we ended up, I think like all of us were in a group chat because we were all attending a certain event. Because during that time frame, like around 2018 through 2019, a lot of the Indianapolis businesses would have like preview events or like come try out our dinner night and like, oh, we'll have an influencer event where you guys can come and be the first to do X, Y, and Z. So a lot of us would get like those types of invites to things. And so we both got invited to something. And I think we were both in a group chat. So we're all kind of talking amongst ourselves. And then I finally met her in real life then. And we just immediately clicked after that and just kind of became instant friends. And we were kind of in each other's lives ever since. So it's kind of crazy how that happened because obviously like she's super great on fashion and doing all of that stuff and I am not. So it was just a good pairing, I feel like. And so ever since then, like we've been friends and we've gone through lots of seasons with our lives with each other. And it's been like really cool to kind of see, like we were just talking about this week, we're like, wow, like the podcast, it is what it is now, and it's going to continue to grow because like we're finally in the best place to be able to do it. Whereas like those years before, they were not so great. So
Yeah, and there's also a chemistry that the two of you have, and
yeah.
it's a risk that you take. I mean, when you've never done a podcast with a person, but hey, now she's like a reg. I mean, she's part of it.
Oh yeah. And that, and that was something where um we had always done like funny TikToks together when we had our girls' nights and all this stuff. And so when I was saying we ended up talking about like maybe we should try this out and see how it goes. And then yeah, I think it was one of those things where it became just very natural for us. Like we were literally doing what we do as friends, but we just now have mics and a camera. So
Mm.
nothing had changed. The dynamic of all of that didn't change at all. And then all of a sudden now, like the growth between her and I, not only in our friendship, but business wise, it's all been very organic, which I love. I don't ever want to push something on somebody that they don't want to be a part in. And then all of a sudden things just started to grow. And then she's like, well, I was thinking about what if I did X, Y, and Z? And I was like, yes, girl, let's go. Like we've been very, very on point with the way we think, topics. It's crazy how it just flows so naturally. We're very much so on the same page for a lot of things, which I think maybe the entire friendship, we've had maybe one conflict. And we got over it and then that was it. But that was like years back. And ever since then, like we're just very much the same person. It's kind of crazy. It's just happened super naturally, which has been great because yeah, you do take a gamble when you put a mic with somebody. I've had some episodes where I've really had to pull out people to have conversations when I thought they were going to be able to do something one way. And then I put a mic in front of them and a camera and like, I'm like, what happened to you? What happened to your personality? It's hard.
Yeah.
To be able to capture that week in and week out is really, really great.
How essential is it, in your opinion, to surround yourself with authentic relationships?
Oh, it's so important. Within the last 3 years, my circle has become smaller and smaller, and I have weeded out the people I've needed to weed out. A lot of people that I thought were my friends, really, which it doesn't make any sense to me because honestly, like I don't think I have a big following at all. And then like I realized some of these people only wanted to be my friend just to be on social media. And I was like, are you joking? Like, I don't have a lot of followers, like compared to, the others that have like hundreds of thousands of followers and millions. Like, that's not me. That's not who I am. But they liked kind of what my name, I guess you can say, kind of came with. And then I would see how surface the relationship was when things would go down and I would need help with something and like it was crickets. And then all of a sudden, oh, Johnette needs help with something. Yeah, but you know what? That influencer event you're going to, and you're getting all these photos taken by all these photographers and all the people in Indy, and I want to be on the up and coming scheme. Let me be your friend for that. It was a lot of those things that I found out about people. And so I have slowly but surely what I did was I just stopped interacting with people. I muted a ton of people that were in the larger circle of groups here in the area. And I was just like, you don't bring anything to my life. You are not positive at all. I know you officially as a person and you're not a good person. And I don't want your energy around me. So I would either will block you or I will remove you from my life. And I will stop having conversations with you. And I don't need to talk to you anymore. And it's simple as that, bless you, be on your way, do what you need to do, but you don't need to be in my circle anymore. And I've had to make some hard lines with that. And it's been hard. But it always shows itself because then like a few months later, I'll find out about a certain person or they did X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, I called that 6 months ago, So it's been super important. Those people that are not there for really who you are can very, very easily influence you and take advantage of you and pull you in the wrong direction. And that happened to me multiple times. And I finally got strong enough to be like, I can see right through what exactly you're doing. And I'm not going to entertain a conversation with you.
Okay. But how do you see yourself continue to grow in the future?
I definitely see really for me, like I am all games in on the podcast right now. I also am a content producer for an organization out here called Latinos Indie. And we are a media company that basically is kind of like your news, your resource community events for the Latino community here in Indianapolis. I absolutely love what I do. I love content creation. And to be able to do content creation that also educates our Latino community here is amazing. I've been able to meet so many wonderful people. And it's really kind of crossed a lot of lines with my podcast where we're now collaborating and doing things. And so now it's having me see how, and envision this podcast being way more than what I anticipated it to be. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. I really see us traveling to other places to do podcasts. So that's something on my bucket list where we're going to be making moves and interviewing people in different states and like either doing that or doing a tour of some sort. Like we have some big things that we've been talking about and wanting to really, really kind of connect and tie everything together. So that's really what I really want to do. I want to dive in continually with the content creation, with helping the community here in Indianapolis in terms of the Latino community, growing the podcast, being the best mom I can be, and just like fully diving into what that purpose is.
Okay, well, thanks so much for sharing all about where you're going with your life, with your podcast. And now I want to ask you the question that I ask every guest, and that is, Johnette, what is your truth that heals?
Oh my gosh, the truth that heals. I think it's something that I touched on when we did our live, was the whole, I really with my entire life, I think because of everything that happened to me, I was constantly pleasing others, and I wouldn't allow myself to be who I am. And it took me a while to accept the fact that how I was made was how I was created, and that's who I'm meant to be. And it's okay. And I can be as authentic, and I don't have to people please anybody, that if they are not for me, they are not meant to be around me. And I think when I finally got to that, that was something that was so, so healing to me, because I was constantly chasing everything and everyone else and making everyone else happy, and me kind of like morphing into what they wanted me to be, instead of taking a step back and being like, wait a minute, no, this is not who Johnette is. And it's taken me so long to finally realize that. And it's crazy that I'm in my early 40s and it's taken my entire life to come to that, resolution, because now I look back and I'm like, damn, I could have done all this differently. If I had just stayed, stand firm in who I was as a human being, so many things would have come out differently, but nonetheless, is what it is. But I think it's knowing that like who you are is okay, and to be confident in who you are, and not having to please people just to satisfy everyone else. Like you are authentically you for a reason, and there is a reason why you're on this earth, and that's okay.
Well, thank you so much, Johnette, for sharing your truth that heals. And for those who are listening on this podcast, where can they find more about you?
Yeah, so we're all over the place. So I'm on Facebook. I still have a personal page. For some reason, it doesn't let me allow to shift it to a creator page, but you can find me there on Johnette Cruz. We also have a behind the filter page on Facebook, on Instagram. We're on TikTok on behind the filter. We are also on YouTube, and then we're also on Spotify, and then also Apple Music, and we just recently got on Substack as well.
All right, excellent. So I'll be subscribing to your channel, and I hope the audience, you subscribe as well, and to mine.
And both of ours.
Both of ours. So again, thank you so much, Johnette, for being on the Truth That Heals podcast and for sharing your truth. And for those in the audience, please like, share, subscribe, and I hope everyone has a fantastic day.